is so very easy. My name is Laura, and today, let's quilt the big, bold tablecloth. To quilt it, you don't need to put a batting in it. You can if you'd like, but I'm going to be using a nice, thick flannel from Northcott. It is enough thickness that it's still going to look like it's quilted, but I don't have that extra thickness of a batting. Because I have no batting, I'm going to be able to baste it together with a glue stick. Now the glue stick needs to be washable. In other words, the glue is going to come out in the wash, but we are going to be washing it after all. And the glue stick I'm using is just a Crayola Kids glue stick, and it actually says washable on it. You can always test it if you're not sure. And to do all of the quilting, we're going to need our walking foot. You can mark the quilt top before you sandwich it together. And when I'm using a dark color like the red and the black, I like to use something very simple to mark it that I know is going to come out in the wash, and it's hand soap. You can use the tiny little hand soaps that you get in motels, or just get a big piece of hand soap and clean off the edges so you have a little bit of a sharp edge. And that soap is going to leave a nice mark. We don't have to do a lot of tight quilting because there's no batting that we need to hold together. Let's start with the center. Find the center and put a mark in each of these corners. Once we have those 4 marks, draw a line to join them. So you're going to be making a square inside of this square. That soap is going to leave you a nice bold line. Find the center mark to those lines. And we're going to do another square inside of this square. Let's repeat that again. Finding the center marks so we have the square inside of the square. We have 3 squares inside of the squares. For these big corner squares, just take and put an X through the center of the 4 of them. What we will have are these big triangles that need to be quilted. Just use your favorite marking tool and make sure that the marking tool is going to wash off. The pencil I'm going to be using to mark this lighter is from Sew Line, and it has a little bit of a pink lead in it, and I've tested it and it does come out on my fabric, but test it for your own fabric because every fabric and marker is a little bit different. It's more like a chalk, this one. I want to take and I'm going to draw a line straight right up to this point, and then take that point going into the corners of that red and into the corner of the black. 2 lines coming out and 1 line going down. And for along the border, 2 lines going down the center all the way around. When we do quilt this, we're going to be able to just keep stitching. Start at one of the points in those center squares and stitch that first square. Do the second square. You'll have to travel a little bit over to get to the next. Go around and travel until you get to another line. You can do this star pattern next if you'd like. So you would go down, over, up, and you're just going to keep following a line. Once you get to one area, you're going to be able to do all of those larger blocks. We'll have a stitch in the ditch all the way along the edge, and then follow those 2 rows of stitching. I'm going to be using a matching red thread. I'm also going to make my stitches a little bit bigger. The tablecloth sort of has that bold look, so I'd like my stitches just a little bit bigger. Now we're going to be able to sandwich this together. Turn the quilt over and get it on a surface where you can put a couple of pieces of tape just to hold it down. You don't need to stretch it. You just want to hold it down so it doesn't shift as you're working on it. Before I go any further, I like to make sure I have no threads that are going to peek through on the light fabric. So I'll trim those off. I've washed and dried this flannel in the wash machine just like I would any regular clothing. From there, I'm going to give it a press. Your backing doesn't need to be too much bigger than the quilt. If you have even a 1/2 inch all the way around the outside, it's going to be enough. Because there is no batting, it's not going to be pulled in and shrink in size. It's going to stay pretty much the size it's at. Because my quilt is quite big and I don't have a table big enough to do the entire thing, I'm going to work on half at a time. I know this backing piece is the right size. It's folded in half. I'm going to find the halfway mark on the quilt top. Once the flannel is down and I have the fold right along the center, I'm going to be able to start putting some little dollops of glue. The flannel is automatically going to want to hold these two layers together, so we don't need a lot of glue. But I do like to put a little bit of glue in those little areas where the seams matched up. A couple of pieces in the larger areas just to kind of hold it all together. Just put some little markings of glue. And just a little bit. You don't need a lot. You just want to hold it together. Once I have a little bit glued down, I'm going to be able to put my hands in between the two layers of this flannel, and I'm going to fold it in and bring it to the area. And I can smooth it underneath. I'll be able to feel that there's no wrinkles, and just smooth that right to the next point. So I have that first half done. I'm just going to give it a good rub with my hands, just so that glue is going to stick. If you feel any wrinkles, you can just grab the edges of the quilt, just give them a little pull, and that wrinkle's going to come out. Just smooth it back down. From here, we need to let that glue just dry a little bit. Don't be tempted to iron it, because that ironing can make the glue permanent, which we don't want that glue to show through. But the glue needs a chance to absorb into the two fibers. So just let it rest for a little bit, and then we're going to be able to come back and do the other half. We're going to do it the same way. Fold the fabric back into half and then work it this way with your hands back inside. While we're waiting for the glue to dry, we can set up the machine. Walking foot would work great, and that way it feeds the fabric at the same time. If you don't have a walking foot, you can still stitch along those lines. I would take a piece of the flannel and an extra piece of fabric and do a test and make sure that your stitches are going to look nice. I'm going to use red in the bobbin and red in the top, so you're going to see the red stitching on the background. It'll just make it a lot more fun. Once all that glue has dried, I like to put just a couple of straight pins right along that edge. It's just going to help that fabric not peel back on itself as I'm quilting. I do have a video on how to stitch in the ditch, and I'll put a link in the description for you if you'd like to check that out. Once my tablecloth has been all marked and it's ready to go, I like to set up my sewing surface. I do have a flat bed, and it's built right into my counter, so I have a nice big flat surface to work with. But I want to make sure that this surface is nice and clean and there's nothing sticky on it, so that the quilt does not move smoothly. And I use a shoe shine brush. You can get this in any store. It has a little bit of a silicone in there. And I just buff all of my counter. That cleans up all the dust. It just kind of puts a little bit of a slick surface on it. And it really doesn't leave any residue on the counter. It just sort of cleans it really well. The next thing I like to do is put a pillow between me and the machine. And I like to have a pillow that has a little bit of a slippery surface to it. And having that pillow between me and the machine, it has extended this work surface so that I don't have the quilt falling down. I have my walking foot on, red thread in the top and the bobbin. And even though I'm not free motion quilting, I'm going to use my quilting gloves. I have very small hands, so I have children's size garden gloves, because I like them to be really tight. It has that protective surface on the palm, which makes me really able to hold on to the fabric. Having the gloves on is just going to help me be able to relax as I'm doing it, so I'm not having to hold the quilt as much. Make sure you're in a good position so that you're at a nice straight angle. And we get to start. First thing I'm going to do is pull that bobbin up to the top. Just going to put the needle in, pull the needle back out, and that bobbin thread is going to be pulled up. Now I don't have to worry about this getting tangled underneath. Put my threads out of the way, and I'm going to start. So I'm going to go around that center square. When I need to pivot, I can just fold in some corners and turn. The walking foot and the machine will be able to do all the work as long as this is not being held down. So you don't even need to guide it with your hands. You just need to drive it. I've done the first square and I'm right at the point that I've started. So I'm going to be able to go and do that second square. Just have that fabric rolled inside so that you're able to control it. The second square is done and I'm right at my starting point. I'm going to travel to the next square by following one line of quilting. Now that I've hit my point, I can continue and do my next square. The third square is done. I'm going to travel and stitch in the ditch all the way around the outside border. When you're stitching in the ditch, it's important that you stitch in the ditch, which is the lower part, versus the hill. If you have your seams pressed to one side, that's your hill because it's a little bit thicker. The ditch is the lower part, and even though you might have to change sides to keep in that ditch, it will make it a lot easier to follow the ditch. Throughout the rest of the quilt, I'm going to try to do the area where I stop and start. So in this case, I'm in the middle here. I'm going to do those lines that are coming out. When I'm done, I want every ditch to be stitched and all my lines. If you've used a light colored background with a dark thread, you're going to be able to see your pattern very clearly. You're also going to see if you've missed a spot. If you don't like to see the thread, use a matching backing or a backing that has a lot of pattern to it and you won't notice the stitching. Doing straight stitching with that walking foot is a very easy way to finish this project. We need to trim up the edges, then we can do our favorite way of binding, and we're done. This is going to be able to be put in the wash machine and the dryer. Stitching in the ditch has secured everything, so we're going to get a lot of wear out of it. We don't have to worry about any batting shifting because there is none. It's also very easy to quilt because we do not have so much bulk that it doesn't fit into the arm of our machine. Using that glue stick is enough to hold them together, so when you do wash it, that glue is going to go away. I wouldn't recommend a glue stick for all quilts, but for tablecloths and placemats that are going to be washed a lot and that have no batting inside, they will work fine. And just don't iron it because you don't want to set that glue permanently, and that glue will wash out. All we need to do is trim this up and put our favorite method of binding on, and the big bold tablecloth is now done. Thank you for joining me today on Sew Very Easy. Feel free to subscribe, and as always, come on back. Let's see what we're sewing next time in the sewing room. Bye for now.